You're listening to the Youth Critic Podcast on KHZ Network. Find us on Facebook at DecibelUNG Radio and find us on Twitter at DecibelUNG. If you like this episode, please leave a like and comment on our iTunes page at KHZ Network. And now for the podcast.
Miles!
Yeah.
Gotta go!
If you want me to drive you, we gotta go now.
No, Dad, I'll walk.
Personal chauffeur going once.
It's okay.
Seriously, Dad, walking would have been fine.
Breaking news, Spider-Man saves the day again.
Spider-Man. This guy swings in once a day. Zip, zap, zop, Nancy. Accountability.
Speed up. I know these kids.
Yo,
Miles, man, you get arrested?
Gosh, don't cops run red lights?
Well, yes, some do. But, not your dad.
In your universe, there's only one Spider-Man. But there is another universe. It looks and sounds like yours, but it's not. My name's Miles Morales.
Hey, kid. You're like me. How?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Youth Critic Podcast. I am your host, Dale Smith, and with me today is Tyler Scruggs.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
And today we are going to be talking about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Dun, 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 dun. And so, Tyler, what were your thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
Well, I had many thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse going into it. I felt like there was so much context that wasn't being articulated in like many of the articles and reviews that I was spotting. Really, in terms of like what Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse means for like our culture at large, not just for minority groups, but for the internet, because in a lot of ways, the internet kind of demanded this film into existence, starting with the Donald for Spider-Man campaign back in 2010. And so like if you follow the thread from there to now, you know, in the heat of representation in media and political correctness and diversity and all of these things that like are now very, very tense conversations, the product of that is perhaps the most natural feeling, the most immersive, most universal and accessible Spider-Man movie, or even superhero movie perhaps, that I've ever seen.
Okay, so,
that's a lot. I know.
It is a little bit of a lot because for me, I feel like it's a win for, I think it's a win for fans, but it's a win for everybody because not only the movie is really good, but because I think there is a benefit to how this movie was made, and there was a benefit to the kind of movie this is, because because Tyler, we're kind of in a world where there's a lot of cinematic universes. There's, you know, because of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have all these, you know, heroes all kind of joining together. But Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is basically essentially, it's like if the Avengers was the first movie out of the gate in the MCU and somehow was still successful in nailing down every character and every individual beat and giving you enough of each character to where it feels like you can follow each one and you can gravitate towards each person. Because, I mean, each character gets a really nice dramatic beat in the climax. They get their own really funny moments that works, you know, to their character. It's not like just some throwaway joke. But they all kind of work very well together, even though some of them only have just a few moments of screen time in this, you know, almost 2-hour movie. it still all together holds together. So for me, I feel like we benefit because this, and I think I don't remember who specifically said this, but someone on Twitter said, it, and I'm going to paraphrase, it kind of reinvigorate the entire comic book genre, because this is exactly what the comic books are like, or very similar in types of storytelling. But also, it gives a new voice. It gives a new perspective. So yes, I'm also throwing a lot at the table. But in other words,
we're going to be talking about this movie for longer than I think anyone is really ready for, especially because of how eventful culturally, like these like 2018's superhero films in particular have been, like looking at Black Panther in February and the Avengers Infinity War in April, where half of all superheroes are dead. It's a very morbid time, where it's very easy to get cynical about the way things are. And I think, in the conversation and in the vision for representation and diversity in media, like that's exactly what the end goal is. So like here is another, like things are bleak and morbid, and there's a lot of weight in Avengers Infinity War, like in terms of how that film and its themes affect the public psyche. But this film exists simultaneously in a parallel universe where it's like, this is how things also are, like they're like, this is a 2018 teenager in Miles Morales, and like this is the realities of life and of our responsibility, our great responsibility. And I love so much how they flipped that on its head to Great Expectations, to where that's not the saying, great expectations comes great responsibility, or whatever the character was trying to articulate in the film. I just love that so much, and it's such an important message to coincide with all of these other films, and the sheer joy and positivity that like just oozes from every frame of this film. Like I haven't seen anything like it before, and I'm going to keep praising it because I'm thinking and I like I can't find a fault. Like, it's not childish, it's not condescending, it's not overly complicated, it's not chaotic. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful, and it makes me feel better about my circumstances and everyone's circumstances.
It does. I literally, it is, and I don't think I've ever watched. It's been a while where I was telling a friend of mine this when I walked out. Is I didn't want the movie to end. I wanted to stay in the world of Miles Morales, and I wanted to, I didn't want the film to end, and that's not happened in a while. I don't think it's happened. Hasn't happened in a while since maybe the Lego movie or the Lego Batman movie.
Sure.
But still, it's like it's been a long time since we've had a movie where you're just like, okay, I don't want to. Okay, that was great way to end it. Let's move on. But no, I'm like clinging on to the sequel. Like, can we get the sequel tomorrow?
Yeah, which I mean speaks to the quality of the film in an interesting way, because it like this is exactly what Sony needed and wanted, and I'm glad that they gave the keys to the right person, to the right people, because they are getting it. They are getting a cinematic universe that people are going to be dying for years to come. Like as soon as the Spider-Gwen movie comes out, like that's going to be a huge event film. And like as soon as, like, even if they don't pursue all of the universes and threads that they created in this web, mind you, like what they have is a solid character in Miles Morales. And in my review of the film, I likened him to Marty McFly, because that he was just freaking cool, like Marty McFly. Like you want to be Miles Morales's friend because he's funny and dependable and has great taste in music, and like is very authentically fleshed out and totally negates and contradicts like all of like the, I hate to even bring them up, but like the comics gate white man babies that creep out, that have been creeping out for years, like through means like Twitter and Reddit and stuff, to tear down characters like Miles Morales or Riri Williams, Ironheart, or Thor, but Thor's a woman. Like there's a rebellion against this phenomenon going on in the comics industry right now, and it's scary and awful. But the film could have been underdone or underserved in a way that supported their view. But I mean, to me, it just seems like it closes the book on the argument of who or what can be Spider-Man or a hero, like in a way that's bigger than like, oh, Ratatouille, anyone can cook. Like it's anyone can be a hero and you can too, but most importantly, they are like the people that you are marginalizing and tearing down are characters and heroes in their own right and deserve to be treated as such. And I just hope that this movie opens people's eyes to that further.
I hope so too, because I feel like, because going back to your review, you mentioned that there was for a little while a rumor that Donald Glover was going to be in the Amazing Spider-Man reboot as Miles Morales during his Community days, I think. Yeah.
So for those of that aren't aware of this phenomenon, so this was like probably season 2 Community. Donald Glover, Childish Gambino was a free mixtape thing that he did as basically a joke. It was just a wildly different person then versus the kind of mainstream celebrity that he is now. So naturally on Twitter, like as these things kind of happen, someone just suggested that while they're rebooting Spider-Man's following Spider-Man 3, like, oh, why can't how about Donald Glover? He'd be perfect. And at the time he would have been perfect because he looked like 19, 20, or he was playing between 18 and 20 on Community, and definitely could play younger than Andrew Garfield. But he actually never got a call from Sony. Sony never reached out. He never got an audition to even attempt to play Spider-Man in their reboot. And then once Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, was a failure, and they tried to reboot it again, that's when the conversation reignited, like, well, Donald for Spider-Man, as Miles Morales, like this is perfect. And I think there's definitely room in the MCU for Miles Morales, and they intentionally make room for Miles Morales through Donald Glover in Spider-Man Homecoming. So it's, this is all comic books and just nerdy shit, but I can't help but look at it with glee and just feel so vindicated that this is something that people want to see, and I hope it makes $1 bazillion.
I hope so too. And for those listening, we are recording this on Saturday, so we don't really know exactly what the box office numbers are. I did check a little while ago. It is tracking to make $40 million this weekend, which unfortunately isn't much, but it's a decent start.
I think it's a decent start. I wouldn't be too hung up on these opening weekend numbers. I know everyone else in the world will be, but I definitely have like this feeling that Into the Spider-Verse is going to gain traction going into the holidays, then work its way down off the box office. Because I mean, if we're looking at the competition coming up, yes, it's strong in terms of studio backing, but I mean, the reviews are coming in for Mary Poppins Returns, and those appear to be lackluster. Word of mouth for Bumblebee, yes, is positive, but
it will be.
Yeah, and I mean, Bumblebee is going to make a ton of money, but I don't think that's going to keep audiences away from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, especially once word of mouth that this is unlike any superhero or animated or Spider-Man film that people may have grown tired of. I think it's going to make its way into the kind of hit that it deserves to be. Because I mean, it feels almost like it doesn't feel like a blockbuster film in a weird way. And obviously it is in terms of like budget and marketing, but it's, I mean, my opening night screening was empty. It feels independent in a lot of ways. And it's also an animated film, which may, people may struggle to go out and see animated films, for one reason or for another, especially given the awful trailers that they are pushing. Children's films look terrible, Kale. They look so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think a snippet of the Secret Life of Pets 2 trailer.
Oh, you saw just a snippet. I saw 4 consecutive trailers of that film, each centering around a different animal, because apparently they made 12 trailers, like character trailers, and there's Secret Life of Pets in theaters, and go on the secretlifeofpets.com for the Penny trailer, or the puppy trailer, or whatever the characters' names are in the Secret Life of Pets. I do not know.
And
however,
that's how they get you.
Yeah, and I remember that whole message, and I'm now I'm struggling to remember the other trailers that made me totally facepalm and make me want to leave the theater. A Dog's Way Home. Come on. what are we doing here? Like,
Well, what do you mean, like good or bad?
I mean, I can't really speak to the quality of the film yet, but like
Trailer.
they tell the entire story in the trailer. Like the dog comes home at the end of the trailer. Like,
So it's Homeward Bound but rebooted.
it's Homeward Bound rebooted, but like I have no idea what the stakes or the tension or the reason to see that movie is for anyone, because they show you the movie. The dog is cute, the dog grows, the dog gets lost, and the dog finds its way home. Like, I would have at least been like, would have wanted to like fall into some sort of suspense that the dog may or may not come home. But they answer that question for me.
Oh my god, this sounds amazing. Like amazingly bad. Sorry.
No, yeah, it's amazingly bad. As well as the Ugly Dolls trailer that I saw.
I have not even heard of this movie. What's the Ugly Dolls?
Ugly Dolls appears to be an independent animation house. It was not attached to a big studio. Animated film about a line of plush dolls that have like one eye or like snaggletooths and call themselves Ugly Dolls. But they're just like plush, colorful creatures that they call themselves Ugly Dolls. The film is called Ugly Dolls. But in this film, it's a musical film, apparently with some big artists, Janelle Monáe. I think I saw Pitbull's name on it, Kelly Clarkson, and they all have songs in the film that like their respective characters sing. But the song that I heard, Kale, was so horrible. Like, I love pop music. I love pop music to my dying breath. I will listen to Britney Spears, Ariana Grande, Victoria Justice, Miranda Cosgrove. I am not one to shy away from heavy synths and loud drums and fake girl rock electric guitar. I'll eat it up. I don't care. This song did not rhyme, did not make sense, did not provide any sort of information about the character that was singing it. It was a song about being ugly and being okay with that because you're in a community of ugly dolls.
It's okay that you're deformed because you're in a community of other deformed people.
Which is in and of itself a positive message. I think people, should learn to appreciate themselves and love themselves for who they are. And I suppose that's the message of Ugly Dolls as a brand. But that may be giving them too much credit. I don't know. But like, just hire decent songwriters, or like write a script that like there wasn't even like scenes from the film. It was like a music video for Ugly Dolls just to get me aware of Ugly Dolls, and that was probably the intention of it. It's like, oh, like here's a song that explains what Ugly Dolls are, so that next time we hit you when you go see what's the next kids movie?
Mary Poppins Returns.
Mary Poppins Returns. We'll hit you with that full trailer where we'll give you some characters and some context and a premise and a plot and and maybe a reason to see the film. But those are my hot takes.
Yeah, I'm okay that I miss trailers for kids movies because they all suck nowadays. Like Into the Spider-Verse is the only one where I actually felt like, okay, this is actually really good advertisement.
And I would love to go watch the trailers again. One, because they're gorgeous, but two, I was actually thinking about this. The trailers in the film, or at least the first one or the initial two, didn't have. Those were like scenes not in the film. Like the train the conversation at the subway station between Peter B. Parker and Miles, where he's like curious about Spider-Man. Like that scene doesn't happen in the film. But it's in terms of creating context for the film, like it's such an effective trailer because it's supplementary to the film. And I think animated films like do a really good job of this, where like the trailers are like isolated short stories that, you know, have a hook at the end to get you to watch the film. But oftentimes they are so chaotic and so nonsensical that I can't even watch that. Like I haven't even seen The Secret Life of Pets or pretty much any
Illumination movie,
any children's film that really any children's identifying film that what do I want to say, like that doesn't receive buzz or critical acclaim. And that's not a knock on kids films. It's just a disappointment, and a lot like in the way that a lot of horror fans feel. Like I feel that way about kids films, where it's like, oh, I love like horror, but like so much of horror is just bad that like I have to like wait for the cream of the crop to rise up before I can really take interest. And that's how I feel in like a post Trolls, post Minions, post.
It's really post Megamind. So post Megamind world.
What was why was Mega Man the crux?
I don't know. Like if
Megamind rather.
For me, 2010 kind of felt like the year where DreamWorks and Illumination especially Illumination, all kind of had their like kickstart, and DreamWorks Animation just at that point was just producing like 3, sometimes 4 movies a year, and most of it was just hot garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were really good, like How to Train Your Dragon, Rise of the Guardians, the Kung Fu Panda movies. But most of it was that snail movie, that snail racing movie, whatever that Turbo, yeah, whatever. Most of it was just like Turbo. It was just kind of generic. It was there, and that's kind of why DreamWorks Animation is kind of in this kind of current state it is, where it only is doing maybe 1 picture a year, because they just like went hard and fast for half of a decade, and then when movies like Turbo started failing, that was where everything kind of fell apart. And that's where Illumination was getting really smart, because their movies are very economical. They're very cheap. I mean, I think The Grinch is probably only costs like $80 or $90 million. That. And all of their movies are just like that, where it's all economical. The designs are all pretty much the same. They don't really make too many sets, and too many different, and they don't make that many different angles, so that way they can save money on people that are working on the movie. And then they just get a bunch of people who are just like, yeah, we want to make movies for our kids to play the parts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very much. I mean, Trey Parker's whole reason for doing Despicable Me 3 was he just wanted to make a movie that his daughter could see. And that's from the creator of South Park, of all people.
Yeah.
So I mean, kids movies nowadays, they're just reaching a point where it feels like some deranged clown who has no idea how to keep a child's attention. So they're just doing a bunch of. So I mean, they got one hand with a twirler, one hand making balloon animals, and then they're using their foot to, light it, to hold a match on fire, a lit match.
Yeah.
It's like they're all trying to perform multiple tricks, but none of it really means anything. None of it really adds to anything. So really, you just get a distraction that's 90 minutes long. And for some people, or for some parents, that's worthy. That's a worthy, but it's worthy. But if you're going to just do that, why don't you just stay at home, or wait till Sing is at home, and then your kids can sit in front of the television for days and days watching Sing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I am not a parent, so I don't know if I would feel differently, but like I have strong memories of being taken to the movies as a kid, but I'm also like wondering how worthwhile that experience really is. Like, people complain about children in theaters all the time, and that's not exactly the point. The point being, is the child being best served like seeing that film in theaters? Like, is that how the kid is going to consume that media? I don't think so, because that's not how children consume media. They have like their one thing that they love for months at a time. It's like, oh, like they love Frozen, like, and Frozen, like they want everything Frozen. They want to watch Frozen on a loop. Like, the idea of taking a kid to the movies to see Frozen and then them getting obsessed with it, like, without being able to watch it, like, just sounds very difficult from a parent's perspective. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, like I can't imagine having a child and taking them to see Moana, and then being like, they're really in love with it, so now we got to go watch it like at least once or twice a week while it's in theater rotation. And then when the Blu-ray finally comes out, everyone's just like, finally the Blu-ray's out.
Yeah, and yeah,
we don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to see the same movie over and over.
And like that's part of my kind of philosophy of like going big or going home when it comes to seeing films as like a non parent, like as just a person. Like I need that. I just, in today's attention economy market, like I need the biggest screen, the best, like 3D, the best, like
best sound,
the best sound, the best presentation, because I have devoted this block of time to just this film, And films need to, I think the film industry needs to have greater reverence for that, and like make better movies in a lot of ways. That's not to say that like, oh, like every movie needs to be better, or like all movies suck. But I think, Into the Spider-Verse does this really well, is like, I think, and you know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general and most successful films do this well, and that is give you your money's worth, like in more ways than one. Like, people think that audiences flock to Disney movies because it's Disney. And while that's true to an extent, it's more so that they make a dependable product. And the problem with DreamWorks Animation is that they started to not make a dependable product. And that's what's disappointing, because it just feels like DreamWorks makes these like grabs for general audience's attention instead of, you know, and this really comes from having a singular vision in the film that you're making, personality, and making a film for one person really helps make a film universal for so many. And Into the Spider-Verse really, really gets that, and really, really understands that, like, forget everything. I want to talk to you, and speaks to a very specific, not demographic, not even a particular like racial identity or or age group, but says like, this is Miles Morales. He's a very fleshed out like human character, and we'd love for you to want him to stick around for a while. And I think from beginning to end, despite Miles having to share the screen with like 6 other Spider people, like, he remains the star of the show because he's just so dang cool. And he's just like, there's just such heart to the film that you just feel invested in it all, and I want more. Yeah,
well, going to Miles Morales, it is his story. Like, it is literally his origin story.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he has the help of other Spider-Man creations to form his own identity and forge his own path as, the new Spider-Man for the universe he's living in. He now has it's his story because we're seeing everything from his point of view, and also he's the king, and also he's the person we meet, he's the person we're hanging out with the most, and also he has the more complicated journey than all the rest. Some of the others do, like Peter B. Parker. You realize very early on that he kind of just was a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just was a shitty, schlubby guy who just kind of just allowed everything to kind of overwhelm him, and just allowed everything to kind of everything kind of take over. And essentially that drove the love of his life away and that kind of thing. So for him, he's the only other character that's really on a journey. Everyone else is kind of there. I mean, they have other character stuff to do, but they're there. And then you have Miles Morales, who has his story arc, which is basically trying to forge his path. That's not something his parents have expectations for him. but he also wants to make them happy. So he's dealing with a lot, and also he's a street artist. He wants to be an artist.
Yeah, he's an art. There's an aspiring artistry to it. There's it's interesting that you call Peter B. Parker terrible, because he reminded me, and this was something that I mean, the film was always going to remind me of this, I guess, in some way, but just by its plot. But The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, how it takes a familiar property, gives it some diversity and representation, and is reliant on the previous films to teach the new character how to meet the expectations of what came before. And Peter B. Parker was like this Last Jedi era Luke Skywalker character, because that's part of the arc of the hero. Like, Peter B. Parker is based mostly on the Spider-Man comics of the early 2000s, post the 90s, when we had Venom and all of these crazy things going on to both Marvel as a property and Spider-Man as a story, that they wanted to return to the roots. And part of that included Peter Parker's divorce from Mary Jane and all of this drama and like internal turmoil, and like giving him a new chapter of his story to tell. And all the while, we had the Ultimate Universe in the comics, which is the version of the comics that debuted when around the time that the first Spider-Man film came out. So when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man film was nearing release, they rebooted essentially Spider-Man in the comics to age him down, give him organic web shooters, and that is the Peter Parker that is lauded as perfect and as the best Peter Parker. But when he dies, both in Miles Morales' origin story in the comics and in the film, it's a much bigger deal, because Miles doesn't he doesn't know what to do, and doesn't want to be Spider-Man, doesn't have a reason to be Spider-Man. And I just found that so interesting that that is how we tell the stories. That's how we tell these new stories that are based on properties, but are very different in what they're trying to execute for modern audiences. And I think it speaks to how we as like an era are reacting. Like it now is like a theme in our art to have our heroes turn against us or abandon us in some way, and a need that Into the Spider-Verse proposes is that we need to remind ourselves that we are not alone in our drive to heroism and nobility, and that's just such a great message, and one that I think hopefully the Last Jedi, episode 9 kind of like solidifies through its own way. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I have strong faith in J.J. Abrams. I really think he'll stick the landing literally a year from today, I think.
Hopefully it won't be like by sticking the landing, he accidentally he kind of crashes the plane, but the plane doesn't explode, so everyone lives.
Well, that's how we got to start, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he's going to throw away what any of the Last Jedi's revelations. But I do think that he will I think there's a very, very, very strong pressure to satisfy audiences, and I think J.J. Abrams is up for the task. But what's interesting about Episode 9, if we want to go down that small little tangent, this is the first time that J.J. Abrams has ever had to finish a story that he's started and then left. Like he's not one to start franchises and see them through to its like period end.
As a director, at least.
As a director. But I mean, even still, like I like Damon Lindelof, I think takes credit for Lost's ending, and we saw what he did with Star Trek, just kind of like making 2 films and then kind of being over it.
Alias ended with I think Drew Goddard and Jeff Pinkner were the showrunners. Alias at the end, and then Felicity he actually did finish.
Yes, so that was the crux of the video. Shout out to Patrick H. Willems. He's got a great video about what I'm talking about. It's called something J.J. Abrams.
He did, yeah. Just look up Patrick H. Williams Felicity.
Yeah,
because that's what he was talking about, and honestly, if it does end where Felicity ends, or like it ends the same way Felicity ends, then you know what? That's fine. That's totally fine. And honestly, J.J. Abrams didn't start this, but Mission Impossible 3 was a Prosciutto trilogy ender.
Yeah,
but it still continues. But
I would view Mission Impossible 3 as a pseudo reboot, because I think the subsequent films very take their cues far more from Mission Impossible 3 than they do 1, and especially 2. But I don't have a strong. Other people have much stronger loves for the Mission Impossible franchise than I do. I think they're really fun and well made, but I don't really have strong feelings beyond that.
I like them the same way I like the Fast and Furious movies currently, in that both franchises are just fun ensemble films where we get to see like actors from basically who are in their prime 2 decades ago. Tom Cruise much longer. Still, doing really awesome, cool action sequences and somewhat decent stories. Obviously the Fast and Furious is a little bit more, dumber than Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's kind of the same idea, or still the same kind of I still view them kind of in the same context. But kind of going back to Spider-Verse, so Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, Phil Lord wrote this along with another writer. So I kind of have to ask you, and I'm going to ask everyone else this. Do you think at all, if Phil Lord and Christopher Miller had stayed on Solo, they would have somehow came out with a Solo movie that was better than what we got, or even worse?
Is that the end of your question?
Yeah.
I can say with great confidence that the version of Solo that we did not see, the Lord and Miller version, would have been the better version, no doubt in my mind. And I think a lot of the issues people had with Solo are issues that people could have had with Into the Spider-Verse if it had been as unoffensive or as compromising as Ron Howard's cut of Solo. And I think Solo's good. I like it in its own right. But I without a doubt in my mind, I think the story would have been better told through the lens of Lord and Miller, because I think, and I don't really have much to this other than speculation, but I think the film really, really could have benefited with more wink, wink kind of, we know that this isn't Harrison Ford and we know that this isn't Billy D. Williams, but we want to tell this fun story anyway, like almost as if like the film could have opened between like old Han Solo or Harrison Ford like and Billy D. Williams like sitting down for coffee and like framing it as a flashback to where it's like it's not a biblical documentation of what happened during this era that so many people kind of like hold Star Wars films to, like Star Wars films have to fit in like
Star Wars is the Bible. It's the new Bible.
It really is a new Bible in a lot of ways, and which is man, I really, really wish that we had seen what they were going for in Solo. I'm happy with what we got. I understand why we got what we got, but I also know that my understanding is based on knowing that Lucasfilm has it's strange. Like they have a deep reverence for Star Wars and making sure Star Wars remains 1977 to 1985 Star Wars, like, and retain that feeling, while at the same time reaching insane, unasked for new heights in its sequels. So I think they're reevaluating Star Wars, and that is a good idea in my opinion, because I don't think people want prequels. People don't want prequels, and we want remixes. We want things kind of flipped on their head, because everything has been meeting our expectations lately, which make things a little uninteresting. Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like someone seeing an adaptation. It's like someone seeing like an adaptation of a movie where they did like a tremendous job. Like, I'll just throw this to the wind. Let's take the Twilight franchise.
Sure.
Those are literal like conversions from book to screen. And to me, it doesn't really kind of jive when you see a movie and you're like, yep, they did everything I imagined I wanted. They did everything that was in the book. But there's something boring where you're just like at the end where you're like, well, that was it. They just did there's now a movie version of the book. I got the same story again. So I feel like when we do adaptations, and Spider-Verse kind of relates to this in a way because they are not adapting necessarily the origin of Miles Morales per se.
No, because Miles Morales' origin is divorced from the Spider-Verse until the idea of Spider-Verse kind of came out, which was years out after Miles's debut. But I just love it. I love the movie. I think everyone should see it. If you're a fan of brain altering chemicals and you participate in those things, I think you would find yourself entertained in a different capacity. But at the end of the day, this is a Spider-Man movie. It's the best Spider-Man movie that's ever existed.
That's a bold statement, my friend.
It is. It's better. It's better. It's better than Spider-Man 2. It's better than Spider-Man Homecoming. Peter Parker as a character in cinema has like met its sequel, and this sequel opens up just a world of new possibilities that I think most people are craving, because I mean, and we saw that even in Spider-Man Homecoming. It's like, okay, like Spider-Man Homecoming is very cool, yes, but we did have to like turn Spider-Man into Iron Man to make him like modern. Like that was their idea of modernizing Spider-Man, by giving him the technology and sophistication of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And while that is that's a great universe to explore, it's not as relatable to me. It's not as relatable to most people. Like, I think one of my favorite things about Miles Morales is that he's not a genius, and that like he doesn't like going to the genius school that he goes to. He doesn't like he's trying to barely like skirt by. He doesn't have like projects or things that he's inventing or tinkering with. He's an artist, and I always, I kind of, if we want to talk about self-identification in media and culture, like I was never much of a science person, in the sense that I failed science a couple times in high school, and like I wasn't very good at math, and I was good at other things, but those, they were more in creative and artistic fields, and I like didn't really feel like I had an outlet to like lean in and like kind of really find an outlet for that creativity. And to see a Spider-Man or really a superhero aside from Ant-Man, like that isn't who's just a person who's doing the right thing. And yes, he's bitten by a radioactive spider, and yes, he's got, you know, all of these naturally fantastical superpowers.
But they never lose sight of it. They never lose sight of what makes him relatable.
Exactly. They never lose sight of it, because I think perhaps that is the theme that this era, and, you know, through The Last Jedi and happy 1 year birthday, Last Jedi. That's why I keep thinking about it and mentioning it.
I can't believe it's been a year.
Yeah, and what was I had a thought. And Into the Spider-Verse, it's this theme of expectations and having to meet expectations without knowing one's own abilities. And I think that just personally resonates with me, you know, as we talk about internet culture, and you know, we're at the very, very beginning of a very, very big thing, and that is changing all of society and the world forever in many, many different directions all at once.
Hopefully.
But the expectations that one feels to maintain a podcast or keep active on social media and continue to post sequel after sequel of the story of their lives, like that, and that's kind of what we're doing in like a microscopic way, is like we create these brands and expectations based on our name and aesthetic and identities, and we share things online with people and with others, like in you know, and we create expectations for ourselves. And what does it mean to, like, what are the expectations that are placed on you, Kale, or me, and where are they coming from? And I think The Last Jedi knows to throw out the lightsaber, and Into the Spider-Verse knows to rip open the space-time continuum to illustrate that we're not owed anything, and we don't know what's ahead. And I don't know what's ahead with The Last Jedi or Into the Spider-Verse, but I know that it'll be a great ride and a great adventure, because it's based on a universal truth.
I have nothing else to add.
Sorry, I really should not get so boxy on these podcasts, but I appreciate you letting me talk.
This is great. I actually kind of like this. This is a really good conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but yeah, and I actually kind of all agree. Damn, now I'm just thinking, my God, I want to see this movie again, and I can't wait to see it. So is there anything else to add after that? Because I'm good for now.
I've got nothing. I go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Try to see it in 3D or IMAX or IMAX 3D. It is difficult to catch an IMAX 3D screening these days. They only, like, here in Atlanta, the norm now is only one 3D screening a day, which is a little bizarre, and it's usually late at night. But with the rest being 2D screenings. But if just buy yourself a ticket smack dab in the middle, make sure the screen is covering your entire field of vision, and just come along for this ride. Like, because you think you have seen a comic book film. You have not seen a comic book film until you see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the first literal comic book film.
You know what? I agree. I agree with it all. I can't yeah. I mean, yeah, this is the closest we'll get for a while because yeah, this is it. I mean, it would be weird if the Marvel movie started doing stuff that Into the Spider-Verse does. Or I guess weird is not a good. It would be out of the blue, I should say. But who knows? It could be exciting.
I mean, I think we'll get a sequel announcement Monday. I think that's safe to say.
I think it's safe to say too, but also I would keep in mind. Well, I think they've already started developing the sequel. I don't know who's all involved, but I think it's going to happen. I mean, it will, because here's the thing. And going back to the word of mouth thing, I think this will have strong buzz. But then again, I mean, Mary Poppins is probably going to dominate. Who knows? Because everyone is so in love with Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins right now. And then, who knows what Aquaman will do, and who knows what Bumblebee will do. I mean, those are anyone's guess right now. And then, of course, Mortal Engines will just, die of a slow, horrible death.
Yeah, that didn't make any money.
Yeah. And then the Clint Eastwood has a new movie out for some reason, just because he got it out.
I've heard good things about The Mule. I probably will not see it immediately. Because I feel like Clint Eastwood keeps making movies around the holidays and pretending that they're Oscar worthy, and sometimes they are, but even when they are Oscar worthy, they are not Tyler Scruggs worthy. Trouble with the Curve was malarkey. American Sniper was malarkey. I'll never ever forget that fake baby scene. For as long as I live, the fake baby scene will live inside me.
That's what Clint Eastwood will. That's what will be on his grave, known for
Fake
the fake baby scene in American Sniper. When he dies in 10 years.
I will now only refer to Clint Eastwood as Clint Eastwood, the director of the fake baby scene in American Sniper.
Yeah, and you know what? Sully was actually okay. Sully was actually pretty good, even though
I forgot about Sully. I didn't realize I had forgotten that was a Clint Eastwood film and not a Robert Zemeckis film, because it's got that that airline pristine shine to it a little bit, to remind me of Flight or some other
plane crashing
plane movie about a pilot. I mean, these movies are so plain. I can't really distinguish all of them.
All right, so let's move. So Tyler, ending it here, where can the good people find you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking, Gail. If you like my ramblings, you can find many more of them at www.tylerscruggs.com. And from there, you can find my Instagram, which is at Scruggs and I, my all of my social presence, as well as all of the things that I make. So go to tylerscruggs.com. Figure out how you would like to fit Tyler Scruggs into your life, and I look forward to hearing all of your hot takes and clapbacks and response.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the next group of people, and Tyler, thank you for being on the show, and we'll
My
have
pleasure.
you soon for something.
I know it's complicated.
Take care. Have a great day.
All right.
You want to know what happened to you? I can teach you to be Spider-Man. I love this burger. So delicious. One of the best burgers I've ever had. You have money, right? I'm not very liquid right now.
I think you're gonna be a bad teacher. How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person. One thing I know for sure, don't do it like me. Do it like you.
Brooklyn!
Stop us now. Hey, I'm all in, I'm all in. I ain't worried about a loss or a new friend. Never worried about a fraud or a new bitch. Lost love, I ain't worried about a process.
I see this spark in you. It's amazing. Hands up! Whatever you choose to do with it, you'll be great. I love you, Miles.
Yeah, I know that.
You gotta say I love you back.
Dad, are you serious?
I want to hear it.
You want to hear me say it?
I love you, Dad.
You're dropping me off out of school?
I love you, Dad.
Look at this place.
Dad, I love you.
Dad, I love you.
That's a copy.
Time to swing, just like I taught you.
When did you teach me that?
I didn't. It's a little joke for team building.
Hey, guys.
Okay, who are you?
I'm Gwen Stacy.
Come on.
How many more spider people are there?
Save us at Comic-Con.
What's Comic-Con?
Let's go!